Recorded live.
Hello, this is Simone from Road Retraveled, and I am on the telephone with Rob, the keeper of the records. And currently I'm doing a podcast on St. Bernard, the saint that the ancient Spanish monastery in North Miami, Florida is named after. And I have some questions regarding St. Bernard and the angels. Some interesting things have come up, and Rob, the keeper of the records, is wonderful enough to join me to answer some questions that I have. Hi, Rob.
Hey, how are you, Sam?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Good.
Now, you told me some really fascinating things about St. Bernard, that before he incarnated as a human being, he was an angel. And not only an angel, but he fought in the army of Archangel Michael. And now I am wondering, what was this war about that Archangel Michael was fighting? So can you please shed some light on that?
Well, everybody has a different story, actually. There are three different stories going around about that war, and it depends on who you ask. If you ask a Catholic, you have one story. Catholics like to talk about Michael the Archangel, and actually don't talk too much about the other archangels that are part of that fight. The Hebrews treat it totally different, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is that it was a war between the angels, and the source of the problem was here was this new entity, or actually an old entity, giving new capabilities, and that is humans all of a sudden having free will. Now, angels just felt like they should have free will too. They felt like they were, well, at least some of them felt like they were being cheated, if you will. And so this escalated and escalated to the point of it started off with a single battle and ended up into a lofty war.
Now, who started the battle? Who instigated the first battle that divided the angels?
Well, now here's the story. Everyone says it's a different person. Most people believe that Satan was the one who instigated it, who wanted the change, who wanted to control heaven and earth. But that is kind of single-minded, and it's a little lost on the fact that Earth wasn't that important. I mean, there's a whole universe out there, and Earth wasn't just that important to warrant that much of an interest, if you will. But for most people, they believe that the devil started the battle, started the war, trying to take over heaven. I'm not really sure where that came from. I don't know why they would think that, but that's where it starts. I think that this battle was all about an angel wanting free will and other angels following suit. And yeah, if you want to believe it's the devil, that's fine. I don't want to take people's beliefs away from them. But I don't really believe that the devil would have been bothered with something like that. I think it was some lowly angel who started, and really wanted something more of their existence. And here was these humans with free will, basically free will to think the way they wanted to think and do things that were, evil. I mean, not that they wanted to do evil, but, there were these beings who had this ability, and they didn't, and they're angels, and they felt really bad. The first battle was very insignificant, and just much like many of the wars on the planet, I couldn't even tell you who the first angel was that really threw the first, gauntlet down. But it definitely came to a point where Daniel and Gabriel and Michael all stood their ground and stood on the side of God, who and didn't want angels to have free will, and started gathering their angels to fight. And on the other side, there's a myriad of nameless angels that, over the centuries lost their names, but never lost their battles. It was a very interesting scene, and even the Greeks have a different way of thinking about it.
Now, how did the people find out about this war in heaven here on Earth?
It's funny. It's actually part of the Bible at points, but I think it was the first time it was given to them as information was in a song, and in a Greek song, basically. There was stories about it that sprung from there. But it goes back as far as I can remember. I mean, it's almost in every culture beginning, like with the Greeks and even the Egyptians. They just did not. Their story of it did not come out to light, so we don't have an Egyptian idea of what they believed the fight was about and who was between. Because at that time, they didn't even believe that there were angels.
Now, if some of the angels who started the fight because they were not happy with the free will, now doesn't that in itself show that they did have the will to go against God and fight His angels? Doesn't that seem like a little bit of a free will?
But you see two animals, two lions or lion and another, going into battle constantly, and they don't have free will. It's a battle for life and death. To these angels who saw free will in the hands of a lowly animal in their mind, humans, there wasn't anything different in their mind between an animal and a human. This was, this was a matter of survival in their mind. In their mind and their heart, they felt that their rule as angels was going to be eliminated.
So it wasn't a choice to go against God then. It was just a matter of natural survival that we have in the wilderness.
Exactly. Now, where that changes is at the archangel level. Archangels were given a certain amount of free will just so that they can rally the troops. And that's the difference between an archangel and a regular angel. And they are, that's why they're called princes of angels, and that's why they're the prince. They have a little bit of free will, not nearly as much as a human would.
But if the devil didn't start the war, the first battle, was he involved at all in the greater battles that followed, perhaps?
Oh, yeah. Actually, he was looking into the survivals of the human at that point, and his belief was that if this war ended up wrong in one way or another, the human race would have been destroyed before it even began. So yeah, he fought on a basis of it took him a long time to generate free will, and he wasn't just about to let that go. I mean, he was going to fight that right from the beginning.
So then who was he fighting then? It seems like he's on the side of the good guys and on the side of the human beings.
Well, if you think human beings are the good guys. Yeah, if you're a human being, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, well, maybe he was the good guy in this, but I wouldn't consider him a good guy. I think any war is a bad war, and this was just another one of those situations where everybody stepped up to the plate. Innately, the Archangel Michael and the devil never got along, in a sense, and they did not have free will to express it, but there was that feeling that they just didn't get along always. he always Michael always considered the devil, even when he was an angel, a dragon. He called him dragon by name. They didn't give him very much respect, and
so he was like the black sheep of the family, more or less, the devil.
In Michael's mind, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and at that point, the battle was so huge, and there seems to be this concept that somehow God was at risk, but God was never at risk.
Was anything at risk at this point?
Well, yeah, the human race was at risk, and it always is because it's a tenuous thing at best, but it was very much at risk. I mean, with free will, for sure. And the interesting part is that, God wasn't at risk, and also he could have done something about this at any given time or point. But I think there was some other reason for this war that I've never really understood, and on God's side of things, he might have had another reason for it. Our Saint Bernard, he was the master of arms, if you will, right, standing right next to Michael, and he almost always shows up when Michael is alive on the planet. And we already know. I mean, everyone part of this podcast knows that Michael is living and well in our midst now, and it's very seldom that you will see Michael on the planet and not see Saint Bernard on the planet. Let's make sure that everyone knows there are two Saint Bernards. So this is the one that was, forced the battles of the Crusades, loved them dearly, believed in them, and was squashed really bad when they faltered and fell. And but he's always an interesting character, and to have his building there, that's just amazing.
If Archangel Michael is alive now as a human being, that means that Saint Bernard also reincarnated now too. He's among us again, isn't he?
That's correct.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, why did he choose to be a human being instead of an angel? You told me before that he fell. He was a fallen angel, but not in the terms that he fell from grace. He just decided to become a human being and give up his angelic powers and continue the human reincarnation.
He didn't finish his war.
Oh, I thought the war in heaven was over.
It is, but the other war that he was fighting in the 11th century is not over for him.
In previous lives, you mean? Earthly wars?
Well, he's still fighting it now.
I'm trying to understand how earthly wars that he was involved in previous lives are connected to him having been an angel.
Well, he was a warring angel. There's not too many of those.
No?
No. I mean, just remember, angels are angels. And there's very few warring angels. They made, I've heard unbelievable amounts of angels were fighting this huge war. And, you know what? If it was two angels fighting this war, it would be too many. It wasn't every angel was picking a side and starting, and fighting. The fight lasted a long time, but it wasn't of a lot of humans a lot of angels. But Saint Bernard never gave up being the warring entity that he was. When he came back as a human, he was fighting on the side of the Crusades. He wanted those Crusades real bad, and I don't think he's ever given them up.
And he's still at it even now?
I think so. I mean, if I look into it real hard, I guess I could find out, but I almost don't want to know.
Oh, no, it's a good thing. Let me ask you, when angels fought the war, when people fight in a war, they die, they get hurt. What happened when angels fight in a war? What kind of a war do they fight?
Well, that's why it lasts forever. Nothing happens.
So what is the point of having a war if nothing happens?
They're always talking about like how angels died, but angels can't die. They're dead already.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and they're essentially. But what can happen, and what did happen to a lot of the angels that fought in the battle on either side, was they lost their angel powers and they were forced to earth.
Did that happen to Saint Bernard?
It's happened to Saint Bernard. It happened to a lot of people we know. We've already talked about Brittany having an angel past. And what happened is, just like anything else, if you were one of the beginning humans, a little bit of you is in almost every human, So there's a little bit of Saint Bernard in almost every one of us, I think. I think it'd be very hard-pressed not to find it in any, European-based human, or even African or Arab. Might have a little difficulty finding it in the Chinese culture, but or the Oriental culture rather, but it might even be there. I mean, it's a little bit everywhere. I'm sure they can trace it.
This is really hard to wrap your brain around. Imagining an angel, I guess, being in a way destroyed in a war and being sent down to earth to be a human being. That's incredible. And
but they're not really destroyed because they're always an angel. It's just a matter of that they are not living their lives as an angel. They're part of the human race.
Because they got
really diversifying the human race.
Pardon me? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I mean, there's the reason why we have such a diverse human race. It's because all those angels had major effects on having all those angels on one planet is just ridiculous.
Well, how many angels ended up on the planet after the war or during the war?
Numbers, I would have to go back and think about that and get that answer for you, but a lot, enough.
Like millions?
No, not millions. That's the number that you hear in humans' thought processes, not millions. But a lot of the angel sightings that we have today are, like not necessarily angels that are living in heaven coming down to help. Could be angels living on the planet that essentially have a reason to exist and need to help. So some of them need to help to get back to being full-fledged angels again.
But aren't they incarnating as human beings during that time?
Right now they are, yeah. Not everyone. No, a lot of the angels have made it back from the days of the war.
More or less like earning their wings back?
Yeah. Well, not really, because no one is stopping them from being angels except for them.
So any angel who fell to earth and began to incarnate can go back and be an angel again, like Saint Bernard?
Basically, you have to understand that, this experiment called free will is not something for them, and they go back to being an angel. And they all do. They all eventually understand that free will is nice, but being an angel is nicer.
So it's not all that's cracked up to be. So those who fought against God's angels probably got a taste of free will and decided it's not for them after all?
Yeah, and if you had to ask, I think more of the angels that fought against it and wanted the free will have gone back than the ones that fought for it and didn't want the free will but ended up with it anyway. So it's a little bit of it's kind of humorous on that level.
Yeah, it's like a pointless war. They fought, they fell to earth, got a taste of what they're fighting for, didn't like it, went back home.
Right. And just because we're getting into around 20 minutes now, let me just bring it back to the original reason why the call is this building. This is a miracle building. And you'll go into it in the podcast and try to talk to us a little bit more about it. But this building is a miracle in itself, and just the concept that Saint Bernard has been around this building in his life, in many of his lives, and it essentially has his essence in this building. It's a wonderful thing.
He has his essence in this building?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this building has made it here stone by stone. It was dismantled. It was abandoned. It was brought together. It was just all over the place.
Well, let's not give away all the podcasts. Well, you're going to talk about that on the podcast for sure.
Well, yes, I am talking about that. Of course, that information is already in the podcast, and I was hoping to get your take on it, a little more than I was able to add in.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do another podcast, another one of these after you get it all in and up, and we'll do a follow-up.
Sounds great. Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you for talking to me about angels, and that clarified for probably many of us what St. Bernard was doing as an angel before he became a human being. And answering the question about the Great War, did I ask you who won the war in the end?
The devil lost.
Well, I think many people are happy to hear that.
I'm sure they are.
Well, thank you very much, Rob, and I'll talk to you next time.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.